Good morning. It's Sunday, January 25th. Thanks for joining us for News 8 this week. This week, we're going to dive into a topic that we haven't talked much about and you may not have heard much about. So let's start with some recent context. Earlier this week, we told you about the 177 worshipers who were kidnapped from 3 churches in Nigeria. Now, we got that information from ABC News, which cited the Associated Press. You may also remember that 1 month ago today, President Donald Trump ordered a strike in Nigeria against terrorists who he says, quote, have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. Now, that statement was quickly questioned. This was Daryl Blocker, former chief of CIA Africa Division.
Christians are not the sole target of ISIS in Nigeria. They have been indiscriminate in their violence.
And take a look at this headline from BBC's Global Disinformation Unit, published just a day later. According to that report, information used to draw that conclusion is difficult to verify. The article also cites leaders in Nigeria's capital who call it a, quote, gross misrepresentation of reality. And late last year, you may have heard TV host and comedian Bill Maher reference what he called a Christian genocide.
If you don't know what's going on in Nigeria, your media sources suck. You are in a bubble. And again, I'm not a Christian, but they are systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria. They've killed over 100,000 since 2009. They've burned 18,000 churches. This is so much more. These are their Islamists, Boko Haram. This is so much more of a genocide attempt than what is going on in Gaza. They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country.
This morning, we want to offer you another perspective on this issue. This one comes from Sam Jones. He's a pastor in Iowa who works with a group called Equipping the Persecuted, which works to support Christians in Nigeria. As you'll hear him say in our interview, some of his opinions he'll share are not always popular. Can you educate us and lay a foundation for us? If someone has not heard of what's going on there, can you put it into a little bit of a context so we understand broadly what you're seeing there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, John. And what's happening in Nigeria, it's really kind of crazy. What we're seeing is that the country is divided. So in northern Nigeria, you have mostly Muslims that are there in northern Nigeria. And then in southern Nigeria, you have mostly Christians, predominantly Christians. And so what's going on is that in northern Nigeria, the Muslims are coming down and they're performing jihad. This is through the Fulani ethnic militia. A lot of times you may have heard of ISIS, or you may have heard of Al Qaeda, or you may have heard of Boko Haram. These guys would be of the same ideology as those guys. And so they're coming out here, and their tribe is predominantly cattle farmers, cattle herders, and they're coming in and they're actually moving Christians off of their farms, attacking villages, occupying them. And then these Christians are either getting killed. 8,000 Christians died for Christ last year there in Nigeria. 90% of the world's Christian martyrdoms have happened in Nigeria over the last 5 years. So this is a really, really big thing that's happening. And then they'll occupy their villages and they'll move them aside. The government might come in and step in later on and say, hey, we're going to move you around 200 kilometers away and just put you there, and they become what's called internally displaced persons or IDPs, but that's essentially a refugee in your own country. And they're just left there with just the clothes on their backs, if they're lucky, and then they're just left there. And so we've got about 3 million IDPs, or those internal refugees inside their own country in Nigeria, that are Christians that have been moved from this place. So, I mean, it's a systemic problem that's happening. And just what you were mentioning just this last weekend here on the 18th, that Sunday, there were 3 churches that were attacked in Kaduna State. And like you said, about 170 kidnapped. And here's the crazy thing about this, John. The government, we put out an alert through Truth Nigeria a week before to let people know that this was going to happen, that there was terrorist activity that was going to happen in this area. And then the government did nothing. And then they denied that it happened for 2 days. We had to send in our investigative journalists to get in there and to actually find out what happened. And they compiled a list of names of who was kidnapped. And then finally, the Nigerian government says, well, yeah, I guess there was a kidnapping that took place. I mean, this is crazy what's happening.
How long has this been going on? Is this a very recent thing, or does this actually have years of backstory to it?
Yeah, so it has years of backstory to this. So there was an attack that happened in northern Nigeria on the same day as 9/11 when our Twin Towers were knocked down and attacked by terrorists. There was an attack by terrorists that happened in northern Nigeria at the same time. And that was kind of the genesis point of this. And to put it into perspective as to what's happening, 20 years ago, which, when you're looking at a society, 20 years isn't that long. Every day it's getting less and less to me. But 20 years ago, Nigeria was 70% Christian. Today, it's less than 50%. It's right about 48% Christian in Nigeria today. And it's been because there's been attack after attack after attack. We call it the death of a thousand paper cuts as to what's happening there in Nigeria.
And it is entirely religious based, or are there other factors that are motivating this from this what's happening?
Yeah, and that's the million-dollar question because when you see a lot of the reporting like this has kind of started to break into mainstream media a little bit, a lot of times the way it's framed, it's that it's a farmer-herder clash, or it's a tribal clash, or they tried earlier. I don't know if they're still trying to push this or not, that it's climate change is the reason these attacks are happening. But the reality of it is that when someone yells Allahu Akbar and they come in and they attack a village, you know what their intention was. When they're attacking churches and not the mosque, we know that it was Christians that are targeted. And the problem with this here is that it's not just that the Nigerian government is refusing to get involved and to do something, but because they denied it and they refused the information. And I mean, 160, 170 people being kidnapped, moved around from a church. I mean, you can't go and hide that very much. The question comes, is the government of Nigeria actually complicit with what's happening here in these attacks?
Why do you think there's so much sort of in disagreement with what's occurring?
One of the reasons why I think that they're bringing up some disagreements is because there's ulterior motives as to what's happening. There's Nigeria is the most resource rich country in Africa. And so, I mean, you've got lithium, you've got oil, you've got gold, you've got all of these kinds of things, emeralds, all of this kind of stuff. It is a very important country when you look at this. And on top of that, it's the most populous nation in Africa. So it really is a key geopolitical place. And so the question is who do you want to have control over this country that has all of these resources? Well, there's going to be other political players. And I'm not necessarily saying that media is coming out here and picking a side, but they might be picking who they're listening to or who they're interviewing or who they're talking to. And that causes a lot of problems. But what complicates this even further is that the media doesn't work the way that American or Western media works in America there in Nigeria. So in order for news to get out generally, is what happens is they call a press conference. The government calls a press conference, and the government calls a press conference, then they go and they tell the official narrative. Well, if the government official is Muslim or Muslim sympathetic, they're probably going to cast good light right there on what's happening, or maybe not good light, but they might be saying it's climate change, it's a farmer-herder conflict, it's a tribal clash, as opposed to saying it's persecution, because you don't want sanctions, you don't want intervention from the West, you don't want these things, you want business to go on as usual. But then, if there is a story that gets out, and even somebody goes and says exactly what happened and is telling the truth, the way that it gets to the AP is generally by means of Al Jazeera, which is essentially the Muslim Brotherhood's arm of going out and saying what's happening. And so, of course, it's going to be whitewashed, it's going to be sanitized, and all of this. So, a lot of times, I would say that what people are reporting might actually be the information they're getting. They're just getting diluted information. And so, that's the problem. But that's why we have truthnigeria.com, where we have investigative on the ground journalists who are going out and actually talking to the survivors of these attacks, talking to these people and finding out what exactly has happened. And we're just putting the truth out. They're risking their lives. We just had one of our main journalists just a couple weeks ago attacked his own house because of some of this stuff. His wife had her arm broken in two places. I mean, they're putting their lives on the line. They have absolutely no incentive to go and to be writing for Truth Nigeria other than they love the truth.
Why do you see this as something that is important that we, anywhere in the United States, I suppose, should be aware of?
Yeah, and this is where I get a little unpopular, John. I have to be honest with you. Is I have a belief that there's no such thing as radical Islam. There is apathetic Islam, those who don't follow the faith. But if you read what's going on in the Quran, whether it's Surah chapter 9, that it talks about the idea of killing those who are polytheists or Christians, those who believe in a Trinity, a three in one, or subjugating them. I believe that Boko Haram, that ISIS, that they're actually following the Islamic faith to its logical conclusion as to what it says, the Fulani ethnic militia right there in Nigeria. And so this is a radical ideology that's being put up. And I mean, there are mosques that are going up all over there in Texas. We might look up, but just I live right here in Iowa. There was a church that closed down in Fort Dodge just a few months ago that was bought by Muslims, and they're putting up a mosque right there in Fort Dodge, Iowa, just to kind of put things up. There was a Muslim school that came up in Waterloo, Iowa. Here, they bought the old Walnut Ridge church building, and they're putting up a Muslim school right there. Islam is at our doorsteps, and so we do need to confront it at an ideological level. We do need to confront it at a theological level, because wherever Islam goes and multiplies, it brings death and pain and suffering.
I appreciate the time to educate us. I hope we get the chance to talk again, especially if things begin to develop and we see more of this in the news. I hope you can be a resource for us to learn a little bit more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John.
Coming up in just a few minutes, you'll hear a full interview with the founder and CEO of Hyprlift Inc., KONE Tower's newest occupant. We hope you're enjoying your Sunday morning. Let's get you ready for the rest of the day and the week ahead with your accurate forecast. Welcome back. A Silicon Valley elevator startup is moving its prototype into the KONE Tower as early as next month. You might remember Moline signed a 10-year lease with Hyprlift Inc. Tuesday night. Matty Franz sat down with the founder and CEO of the company to learn more about what he has planned for the Moline icon and the future beyond the latest venture.
We're interested a little bit more hearing about what you guys do, what Hyprlift is, and how you're planning for it to work.
We're a Silicon Valley-based tech startup that is in the elevator space. So we are working on developing a next generation elevator for the next generation of tall buildings. So what makes the Hyprlift a next generation is that traditional elevators use steel ropes to raise and lower the cab in the shaft. What we've done is we've eliminated the ropes, so our cabs are ropeless, and we've basically taken the elevator cab and transformed it into an electric vehicle. So all the batteries, motors, and controls are on board each cab. So it's as if we took a Tesla, if you will, and designed it to travel in an elevator shaft. So the value proposition of building a self-propelled elevator cab is that now we're able to put multiple cabs in the same shaft. So imagine an elevator system in a tall building where you have multiple cabs traveling up in upward bound shafts and multiple cabs traveling down in downward bound shafts with the ability to cross over at the top and bottom. So now you've got a system in a tall building with multiple cabs circulating in a much smaller footprint than you would with traditional elevators that would take up much more space in the building.
Now, I know you guys have been working on this for 7 years now?
We're coming up on 7 years this year. That's correct.
How far along are you guys into the design, getting a prototype together, all that?
In the recent year or so, we've built the first full-scale working prototype. We call it the Hyper One. So the Hyper One is operational in our facility in Santa Clara, California, our R&D facility. And we've been looking for a test tower to basically test it in. You can think of it as that we've built this high performance vehicle and we're looking for a racetrack to take it out on. So we've been, as I said, we've been seeking a location to do this, and that's how we came across the Montgomery elevator test tower in Moline, and we're able to connect with the city officials there.
What modifications, what changes are you guys going to have to make to the tower and the surrounding building?
Sure. So, well, what's in there currently are older traditional elevators with the ropes and the counterweights and so forth, with machines at the top of the. So we're going to one by one remove the old equipment, which is obsolete, and prepare the shafts for the Hyprlift system, which again are self-propelled cabs. The Hyprlift system also uses what we call lateral transfer stations, or LTSs. These are the systems at the terminal ends that allow the cabs to reverse direction by moving from an up shaft to a down shaft, right? So we'll be installing LTS systems in the test tower at some point, and have multiple cabs in the test tower as well. The test tower has 3 shafts, so we'll be able to basically create a circular system of elevator cabs. And at the base of the tower, we'll have a facility that will be reconstructed, because there's going to be a lot of demolition work that's going to be done there. So part of the base is going to be retained, but the other part of it will have to be rebuilt and reconstructed. So we'll be doing that work after the demolition work, of course. But in that facility at the base is where we'll be able to create an area where we could actually take Hyprlift cabs offline or out of the shaft for offline maintenance and repair. So what will be great about this facility for us is we'll literally be able to build and install and demonstrate a complete Hyprlift system. And ultimately what the tower is for is to be able to perform full-scale testing and eventual certification. So of course, with elevators, everything has to be certified before it can be installed in a commercial application. So the tower will be used for all the certification as well.
What are some of kind of the most important steps you're hoping to make inside the test tower?
Little by little, we'll be refurbishing or preparing the tower for our use. So initially, we have plans to move our first prototype, the Hyper One, up to the tower as early as next month, before the demolition even begins, because we can get busy with this first prototype doing validation work, testing, and so forth. So that's our current plan.
Do you guys have maybe some ideas, some plans on how to kind of keep that partnership going with the city?
I can definitely see a future where we would have a larger footprint in Moline or in the Moline area. There's only so much space down at the waterfront project. It's certainly enough space for us to do testing and certification, but to be able to be doing additional R&D and manufacturing at some point, I can see doing that at a nearby location in Moline. So I definitely see a bright future for Hyprlift and the city of Moline working together.
All right, and James, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
When we come back, we'll wrap up the program with one of our favorite stories of the week, just in time for this cold weather we're feeling right now. Stay with us. Finally this morning, if you've only been wearing one of those smart watches or one of those Oura rings for a few years, well, some cows in East Moline have you beat. Haley Bickelhop takes us to a farm in East Moline where similar devices have been helping dairymen keep their herds healthy.
It was basically like a report card.
In the Bonert's barn, about 700 cows have an ear tag
That measures everything going on inside of the cow.
that's similar to your fitness tracker.
Anyone that has a smartwatch or a Fitbit understands all the really cool data that we get from it.
Farmers like Tara Bonert
There you go.
use Cow Manager to keep an eye and a hand on their herd.
So this is that cow right there, 5669, and this is what she's did every hour for the last 24 hours.
The sensor on the ear tag reports biometric data to an app.
And then the green is when she's eating.
The device tracks when cows are moving, sleeping, eating, and able to get pregnant. It then sends the data to a cell phone or a computer through this black box.
As a mom, it would be great to be able to have all these metrics on our kids, because what it allows us to do is really to find animals that aren't feeling well a day or two before physical symptoms.
It also cuts back on labor, and it's made dairyman Scott Boner, Tara's brother, more profitable.
We can just look at a screen and it gives us, hey, you might need to go look at this one cow out of these 100 cows, you know, so this saves a lot of time on that.
These baby calves were born just a couple of hours ago, but within the next month, they could get one of these tags and it would be with them the rest of their lives.
We have Find My Cow technology.
The tag also flashes and it tracks animals.
If I'm looking for a cow in the pens here, I can punch her number in and it'll tell me where the cow is at within the barn.
It's an employee that's operated here for 24 hours a day for 10 years. And although it doesn't take the farmer out of the barnyard, Scott can take the farm with him.
I've been out of the country. I've been in Ireland. I can't imagine trying to manage the herd without this technology.
All right, that'll do it for us this week. Thanks for watching this morning. Have a restful Sunday, everyone.